Hello and welcome to Japan by River Cruise. Thank you for joining us. I am Bobby Judo. I'm calling in from southwestern Japan.
Hello, I'm Ollie Horn. I'm calling in from northwestern Kuala Lumpur.
Interesting. Also today we've got a guest in the studio. This is Brian from Wisconsin. He teaches JavaScript here while interning at Kyushu Daigaku's College of Riverboat Maintenance, and he's here today because he can get an internship credit for being on the show. Hi, Brian.
Hey guys, thanks for having me today. I'm so excited.
Is this an actual Brian?
He is 100% a real Brian in Fukuoka.
There are dozens of us.
More on that story later.
On this episode, we'll be breaking down the forthcoming Japanese consumption tax increase, what it actually means for us. Plus, as always, we've got your weekly river cruise recommendation. Right, Ollie?
Yes, that's right. This week's recommendation starts in Miyakojima and continues all the way to the Senkaku Islands. We look at the mainland Chinese tourist subsidy scheme that's looking to attract budget travelers to the island, which offers them not only a free ticket, but a free Chinese flag.
Complex stuff there. Plus, I'll be reviewing the recently published English translation of My First Time on a River Cruise, the classic collection of Japanese short stories, all centered around the common theme of losing one's virginity while on board. But first, soap talk.
Bobby Judo, why do we call this section Soap Talk?
We call this will be fun because Brian has not been in Japan for as long as either of us and is learning Japanese. So we call it soap talk because the difference in the word for small talk and the word for soap is very, very minimal. And Ollie, it's one of those ones that Ollie just can't get his mouth around. So, do you know the word for soap?
No. Would you like to educate me?
It's sekken.
Yes,
Sekken.
Yes, Bobby would love to educate you. That's
It's kind of my thing. So soap is sekken, and then the world at large is sekken.
Second.
Can you hear the difference?
Yeah, there's the glottal stop.
Right. It's called the glottal stop, Ollie.
Yeah, the Glockenspiel. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you're calling from Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, I'm in Kuala Lumpur. I've just done some shows at the Crack House Comedy Club, which is comfortably one of the best comedy clubs ever. And it was one of these things that I flew from Nepal because
it's called the Crack House Comedy Club.
Yeah, because crack means jokes, right? Like Irish people say, "Oh, it's for the crack."
Right.
And Kuala Lumpur is Malaysia is a pretty conservative country, right? It's it's a majority Muslim population, and basically when they set the club up, they wanted to kind of show it as like a bastion of kind of liberal ideals, even though just being caught with weed on here probably would get you put in prison and slapped on the arse by an actual man.
So they did it like with full awareness of the connotations of the word crack house.
This isn't. I mean, this is run by some smart guys. It was co-founded by a British guy actually, and then the owner of the club, or rather the co-owner and the manager, is a guy called Rizal, who himself is Muslim. And actually, last night he wasn't emceeing the gig I was doing. He was doing his own gig. He was doing a corporate gig to 1,000 doctors. And as soon as the show ended, about 11 o'clock, he came in looking as pale as a ghost. And he said, yeah, that didn't go well. It was booked as like a big corporate gig, big money. It was going to be a big opportunity. And he told a joke, which was my Muslim father was quite a liberal Muslim. And he was taught by his grandfather that a Muslim shouldn't have one single drop of alcohol. So my father said, well, I'll just take that drop away and drink the rest. Now, that's a funny joke.
Yeah.
But it managed to get him heckled by a couple of the more conservative members of the audience. And apparently the mood turned so badly that the MC told him to leave like right away through the back door,
wow.
to literally get out of there. And I said to him, look, what's the worst thing that an angry Muslim's ever done? And to be fair, he did find that funny.
Yeah.
But it does kind of remind you. I mean, certainly Kuala Lumpur is quite a liberal place, but a lot of Malaysia, certainly rural parts of Malaysia, still have quite conservative views. And I guess it made me think. I was very glad to be doing shows here, but I turned up from Nepal. because I just did the Nepal International Comedy Festival, and I explained on stage that that's how bad comedy's going for me. That I have to go there to get gigs, and I
Yeah.
explained that it was there. Nepal got the best international comedians that they could afford, and so that's why I turned up.
I don't know, man. Like I look at what you're doing, like traveling the world and going to all these different countries and doing it by performing stand-up comedy, and I think it's great, and I'd really like to do it. But also, it's got to be brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it does get quite exhausting, and also I do think often what happens actually is you turn up to kind of a nascent comedy scene, and sometimes the show promoters themselves are relatively inexperienced, or more normally they're fairly experienced themselves, but they're working with venues that just don't even know what stand up is, right?
Yeah,
so they just don't get, for example, that they can't also have a band playing while stand up's going on, or like yes, we definitely need a microphone, and so but the good thing is that it means that there's kind of all this new material every time you turn up to a country. You're kind of on, and what I really like is when you're doing like a day of sightseeing, you kind of I certainly feel like I'm more engaged when I've got a gig that evening, because I'm really trying to find out exactly what makes that country tick. But it's also annoying, right? Because I wrote a routine about momos, which is like their local dumplings, realizing that I now can't.
They're like the little soft, like often steamed or stewed dumplings, right?
Right. Yeah, but I just can't do that routine anywhere else, and I'm not even going to bother telling you the jokes now because you wouldn't find them funny.
No.
Also...
No. I think it's essential that Brian and I hear your Momo jokes. Just your best Momo joke. Like you're the bit that you close the Momo set with, like the joke that you close that Momo set with. I think we need to hear it.
What did I say? I think it was something to do with, oh god, something about Buddha. I don't know. Look, my point is, you wouldn't find it funny, but they did, because it's the first time they've heard a white person talk about their own food back to them. But yeah, I mean, I almost didn't.
I'm not going to let you out of this without one Momo joke. Brian. Okay, Brian needs the Momo joke.
All right, this is what. All right, I said, how can one thing I said is, how can a country that has this like long and rich history of creation, right, for like far longer than my country, be so uninspired when it comes to Momo fillings, right? Because like literally, basically Momos are like, they're served everywhere, right? You literally,
I think I had one that was like yak meat or like buffalo meat.
Yes. Okay. So buffalo meat. That's the main one, right? So buffalo meat, and it's like, oh, that sounds exotic. Then what are the other options? Then it's chicken or veg and nothing else. They've not thought about putting anything else in Momo. What they have do is thought to cook it in a myriad of different ways. So you go to a restaurant, they give you an option of like 2 flavors, but about 10 ways in which it can be cooked, and each of those ways has a different price point. And there's just no logic to it, right? So like, if it's boiled, it's one price. If it's fried, it's another price. If it's half fried, it's even more money, right? So like, less frying equals more money for some reason.
Right.
And and like literally everywhere sells Momos, right? So you can't walk down the street. Like a Momo shop sells Momos. An Italian restaurant will have pizza, pasta, then a Momo section. I went to a tire shop. They sold me a Momo. And all right, well, I've made you laugh. That's a bit of a routine.
Brian's enjoying it. I was like dead set on waiting till you got to the end where the punchline is like, Momo, more like, more options, please.
Oh, that's funny. Maybe I should have said that.
That's terrible.
Well, but I had a really nice time, and I did a bit of meditation as well. So before my flight, they found me a guru, but I kind of forgot that I'd booked this in, and I went for my birthday celebrations the night before. Happy birthday, Ollie! And
happy birthday! What are you, 28 now, right?
Yeah, and I got a wake up call at 5 a.m. from the hotel receptionist saying, "Mr. Horn, your guru's arrived," and and you can't. Like, I was really hanging, right, and you just can't tell a guru to fuck off. So I like rushed. Literally, I was running late to my meditation session, which is not a good start, and I was like fully clothed in like the clothes I did my show in, right? So I was like turned up in jeans and a jacket, and they went, "I'll get the jacket off," and then the guy was like, "We're going to be doing a little bit of yoga, and those jeans are going to be quite restrictive. Do you want to take them off?" And I thought, well, it's like the same rules in school. Like when you forget your PE kit, the teacher makes you do it in your underwear.
Yeah.
And so that's what I ended up doing.
I didn't go to that school.
Nor did I. Now that I think of it.
Hey, I didn't know Brian was funny.
Wait a minute. Look, was this school run out of the back of a panel van?
It's a British thing. It's a British thing.
Brian's got a bit of attitude, hasn't he? It's almost as if Brian's been persecuted on this podcast for the last 10 episodes.
Yeah, it's only as like it sounds like he might have a bone to pick with you in the way you lump all Brian's into one category.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's my soap talk. Did the Nepal gigs, had a great time, like genuinely good. There's a good local scene there. Got myself to Kuala Lumpur very late for my show. The show started at 8 p.m. and my flight didn't arrive till 8:50. And so on Uber or Grab, you can like track the GPS location of a friend. I sent my GPS location of my Grab to the MC, and he was giving live updates to the audience of my progress. And I was so worried that I was going to be like properly late that I said, just put my fee behind the bar and buy everyone a drink. But in the end, they didn't. And so now, if anyone that was at that show that's now listening to this knows, you could have had a free drink from me if only the MC was not as nice of a guy as he is. He's the guy that last night made some Muslims cross. Yeah. So anyway, that's my somewhat unstructured soap talk. But
one of the things that I'm having Brian do, since he's here for college credit, is to be the timekeeper. And I'd just like to make a note that Ollie said that's going to be it for my soap talk, and then talked for another minute and a half. Should we move on to the news?
Unless we have any post, do we have any messages? I guess we get a live message from Brian.
Well, I mean, Brian's here in the studio, so nobody's on the keyboards in the mailbox. I want to ask because we've gotten 5 messages now from Brian's. And Brian, how many of those messages did you send?
Probably 1, 2 total.
Okay, so there is definitely at least another Brian out there.
There has to be. And also my friend David, who does listen to this podcast. In fact, he was listening to this podcast whilst filming a David Attenborough series. So he said that his job is a wildlife videographer, and he had to go to Zambia to film a crocodile, right? And he was in a hide for 2 weeks, just waiting for a crocodile to do something. Mm-hmm. And it was, believe it or not, this podcast that kept him sane. So you can imagine quite what difficult conditions he was working in. He is my friend, and genuinely didn't believe that we weren't making the Brian thing up, and so I'm glad that we've got at least one actual Brian to prove that Japan is does attract losers in the way that we claim. Bobby, let's do the news.
So, Ollie, since you're out of the country, you might not be following this as much, but it was pretty apropos that you talked about price points making absolutely no sense whatsoever in your Momo story, because Japan is raising the consumption tax again starting in October. It's going up from 8 to 10% for certain things, and it's all over the news and in the newspapers here because it really is confusing what they're raising and what they're not raising, and the way it'll affect daily life is pretty nuts. So had you heard anything at all about this?
Well, yeah. Well, I know that they were trying to increase the rate. So they increased the rate of consumption tax from 5 to 8%, and then they wanted to raise
when you were there, right?
Yeah, and then they wanted to raise it to 10, but then they waited because they were worried that it was going to cause a recession, which it probably would do. But that's still really cheap. In the UK, it's 20%, right? VAT. And VAT's basically a consumption tax.
What is it in the US now?
Gosh, I think it's state by state. I think they're doing it state by state. Right?
I feel like Florida is still 8.
Yeah. I think Chicago was at least 10 or more, and then in Wisconsin a little bit behind that, because that's what we do in Wisconsin. We're behind on things.
Yeah. So one of the articles that I found today is about the confusion about it. They were really kind of worried about the recession, like you said, and they said last time when they raised it from 8, there was a recession. When they raised it to 8, there was a recession. And they said the biggest indicator whether or not it'll happen is how much people are spending now in anticipation of the increase, because people buy all these big ticket items before the tax goes up. So like people are buying cars, people are buying electronics. But the confusing issue is that certain things will go up to 10 and certain things will not. So as an example of some of the things that will go up, water that is not for drinking and things like dry ice or things made of water that are not for drinking will go up to 10. But
so
water that
seems
is
like
for
you can just
drinking-
save a bit of money by drinking it.
Yeah, definitely eat some dry ice if you're feeling thirsty. That'll be good.
Man, I had a lassie on the street in Nepal. I'm ready for anything.
So I'm looking at pictures, and one of the pictures, the drinking water in a bottle is going to remain at 8%, but the water that's not for drinking, so we've got it backwards, right? So the water that's not for drinking will go up. So you should just say all your water is drinking water, right? Right,
no matter is it.
Yeah. So like there's a picture of a fish in a bowl, and that fish is gonna go up. That fish's water will go up to 10%. But you could make an argument that the fish is drinking some of that water.
Has to be.
It's gotta be. So beer is going up, but non-alcoholic beer is not. Anything that has less than 1% alcohol is not going up. Mineral water is not going up, and then
there's something to do with sake, isn't there? Right? If it's mirin, even though that has alcohol, you're not supposed to drink mirin. I discovered, but
mirin is cooking sake. Basically, it's sweetened cooking sake. So it's like there's yorishu, which is cooking sake, and then mirin is like yorishu with a lot of added sugar.
that reminds me of when I was 17 and invited to a house party in France. I was there on holiday with my friend, and we thought we were so cool. We were like, we definitely should bring a bottle of wine to the party. We went to a newsagent's and just didn't obviously know anything about anything, and brought 2 bottles of Jewish Passover wine to a French person's gathering, not realizing that you're supposed to bring a good one. So so mirin is going to go up to 10.
Don't be slamming the Manischewitz, man. Manischewitz is good stuff.
Bobby, what do you know about being Jewish?
So this is a long-standing joke between Ollie and myself, but I'm Jewish.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I was totally waiting for the. No, you're not, because that's Ollie's blanket response.
And the only reason I say that is Bobby did a YouTube video where he says that he's Jewish, and
that's right.
The top voted comment was, "You're not Jewish." And like that comment had been thumbed up as well. So obviously other Gentiles going, yeah, no.
Well, Manischewitz will go up, and mirin will go up as well. So if you're hoping to use that loophole of just drinking the cooking sake, it's going up. So you're out of luck.
What are they doing this for? Why aren't they just putting everything up to 10? Because they've also, I remember there was a whole.
I guess the logic is that will help avoid the recession, but it's just going to drive people crazy because it gets worse. It gets a lot worse. So takeout, food that you buy for takeout will not go up, but food that you eat in the restaurant will go up. So this includes convenience stores that have eat-in spaces. They have like little counters set up where you can use the microwave, or you can.
Yeah, I found out that doesn't count as a restaurant. Certainly not for the context of a date night.
Well, it does for a consumption tax. So now at the convenience store register, starting in October, they're going to ask you whether or not you're taking it home or you plan to eat at the eat-in space. And this is not like when you're at a convenience store, you don't get a tray with like a fork and a knife. You would basically be like borrowing a chair and some table space while you opened your onigiri and ate it.
It's like
you're basically...
Yeah. And
you're basically squatting in their convenience store, aren't they? Hey, what about convenience stores which don't have that eating space, but they're like, but you just tell them like, I plan to eat this carbonara right here.
You eat your onigiri while you like peruse the magazine.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
Loophole.
I found a loophole. So what if you say to them, "I'm going to treat this store like a buffet," and
But so I guess they're going to ask you, and if you say I'm planning on eating this on the premises, then the tax goes up. They have to charge you the higher tax, and this isn't included for uh, hotel room service. If you eat in a hotel dining facility, or you get room service, but if you eat the stuff in the minibar, that doesn't go up.
Right. Okay. I mean, who does that? I mean, to be honest, if you're eating food from a hotel minibar, you're not really worried about a 2% tax increase, are you? You're already top 1%.
You've got money. But my favorite one, and so one of the TV shows I do, we go around and pick fruits and vegetables and then use them in recipes. So if you go to like an apple orchard or like a fruit orchard and you pick stuff there and take it home with you, there will not be a 10% tax. But if you eat it in the orchard, there will be. This is crazy, right?
Yeah, but I mean, and this is going to be one of these things that just like now just creates more jobs,
Yeah.
right? Like this, the core of this is that there's going to be an office worker that's responsible for having itemized. I saw someone eat a banana, so I think I think we ought to pay a bit more tax. Ultimately, isn't the point of tax reform that like taxes are supposed to get progressively simpler?
You would think so, and I think this is going to be a huge moral issue for Japan because like Japan, it has a reputation for being very honest and upstanding and not breaking the rules. But everyone knows that, like, even if you want to eat your tuna salad sandwich in front of the convenience store, the price is going to go up. So it's easier to just at that register. This is going to be introducing a moral quandary for every customer who has to go, well, I mean, what do I do? Do I take the 2% discount and lie, or do I admit that I'm planning on looking at the nude pictures in Friday while I eat my potato chips and pay the extra?
Is that true for the soft pornography they sell in convenience stores too? Will you be consuming this inside the store or outside the store? Brian, how long have you been in Japan for?
It's been about 1.5 years.
Right, and what percentage of the month do you spend inside a convenience store?
1% maybe.
Of the month, percentage of a month? Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that sounds fair.
Yeah. Do you what thing do you end up buying the most? For me, it was fried chicken.
yeah, the karagebo. That's one of the few things I can say in Japanese is ordering the karagebo. And a lot of like water and sports drinks. I wasn't really a sports drinker until I came here in this humid weather. I'm like putting all those electrolytes back in.
Well, that's really the first time I had like Aquarius or Pocari Sweat. I didn't enjoy it at all, but it's because that stuff tastes different depending on how much your body needs electrolytes, apparently. And so if you are like if you're exerting yourself a lot and your body needs replenishing, it tastes a lot better.
Yeah.
That explains why it always tastes like shit for me. It seems like I never exerted myself.
And yet you were constantly sweating. So there's one more on the list here that I think, how people are always talking about how like the government and the media is all like arm in arm here in Japan, like the news outlets are basically just government outlets.
Yeah.
There's one that really makes me think that they're going hard on like traditional, like the government is trying to boost sales of traditional Japanese media because they're not raising the tax on traditional published newspapers that are delivered to your home and published more than twice a week. But they are raising all the taxes on electronic newspapers and ones that you buy at the convenience store.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even see the reasoning for this. Like why electronic newspapers?
That does reek of protectionism, doesn't it? But I think there's actually a wider point to be made here that I think that the media clearly is changing, because you linked me to a Japan Times article which outlines this story, and the Japan Times article links to the Mainichi Shimbun, it links to the Asahi Shimbun, And it also links, the third-party news source that it links to is the Weekly Playboy. In its September the 23rd issue, Weekly Playboy predicts that the reduced tax system will result in chaos. So I naturally clicked Weekly Playboy, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's a load of women with legs. And for me, this is more telling about the state of Japanese media. That in a genuinely serious article about reporting on the fiscal consequences of an increase in consumption tax, on the same page as me reading in Japanese about this potential upset, I also have a choice of Charisma Girl, Hajimete DJ, or Cyber Jap, which are three options of girls in bikinis. So maybe that's what they're worried about. Maybe that people aren't happy to receive their news unless it's also accompanied by boobs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they are right, especially for their readership, that it will result in chaos because 10% tax rate, they will raise it to 10% on services that you receive from those girls in the shop. But if you can convince one to come home with you, it's actually free.
It reminds me actually that the way that most foreigners interact with consumption tax is by getting it back, right? Because if you go to like Don Quixote or something, which is the big department store, you'll see just queues and queues and queues of foreign tourists getting their 8% consumption tax back. And for the first time I came back to Japan without without a visa, right? So I was there on a tourist visa. I was suddenly eligible to get this money back, right? But I bought maybe 2,000 yen of stuff, but I thought I'm not going to queue for sometimes it's over an hour just to get my kind of like 22 yen back. And maybe just this increase of 10% is only going to make that problem worse. But I do remember, right, in the shop, They said, do you plan to consume these inside Japan or outside of Japan? And obviously, that's a question they need to ask for anything. And it's just a shame that I wasn't buying like condoms and sex toys, which is like one of their main things, right? Like they're mainly a sex shop. This shop, which also happens to also sell cornflakes and t-shirts.
You're talking about Don Quixote, right?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think that's a fair characterization because Don Quixote sells everything, like
what I'm saying is
everything.
But what I'm saying is you can use everything as a sex toy, Bobby. You've misunderstood. No, you are right. In fact, I think I used to do a routine about this. That like, I think whoever is the Don Quixote's buyer is the most tolerant and liberal person in the whole world because they're just someone that's unable to say no. Right? You come in with a product that you'd like to sell, they go, yeah, we'll sell that as well. All right, fair enough. Yeah, so. I wonder if you can like do split. You know, if you were to like buy a bottle of lube, and they go, "You're planning to consume this in Japan." About half, I will. Yeah. Can I pay 9% tax?
Well, they really have no idea what they're doing. Like delivery food or things like that. Like that, you're eating it in your own home, but it comes with a service, right? So like bringing it to your house is a service, but if you buy coffee from a machine that's automated, then that doesn't count as a service. But if somebody pours it into the cup for you, it's considered catering. So it's just crazy. And I think I tend to think that Weekly Playboy is right. I think it's going to be chaos.
Okay, well, yet again, this podcast concludes with us confirming and affirming the worldview of the Weekly Playboy. Final word of this episode goes to Brian.
Oh boy. Well, actually, Ollie, I'm gonna say that you said it.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Okay, so see you next week on Japan by River Cruise.
Continuing to alienate the Bryans at every chance, at every opportunity. So he missed the last episode actually, but we decided that Justin Bieber has the Believers and like Hoodie Allen has the Hoodie Mob. Like we decided the River Cruise podcast listeners are just the Bryans.
Yeah, it's simple. It's easy.
Ollie has no respect for the Bryans.
The Bryans have no respect for themselves.